For me, it's the animals. For other people, it's the fields and the crops and the tractors. But I love working with the animals and getting to know them and working especially with the younger calves and our goat kids, just like whether we're helping calve them or just treating them and like kind of just raising them. I love getting to know them. Caitlin and I have always just helped mom with the cows and the goats, whereas like dad, Henry and Wilson would rather work in the field. So everyone has their different specialties, but we can all like cross over and help each other.
Well, this place has been here, we've been here for maybe 4 generations. Dad does a lot of the feeding, caring for the animals. That happens 6 in the morning. And typically once the dew comes off, then we start. We're working with hay right now. So we've been chopping hay since probably about 9 o'clock this morning. Once the dew comes off, then we can work with that all day. And probably here in about a week, we'll be working with wheat. So that'll kind of be like a lunchtime to 8 o'clock job. And just about this time of day, they get hungry again. So we're about to feed these guys here after a bit. But they'll want another round of feed probably about 7 o'clock in the evening. They like it. Probably a part that's not favored is it can get a little secluded. But when we have visitors by, it's good to see people, even though we might be working. So, you know, to see everybody every now and then, it's kind of nice to get to go to town and get back in with everybody.
Hi, my name's Kim Steward. I'm the owner and operator of Woodcock Hollow Farm. I'm a 3rd generation sheep farmer. I grew up in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania on a commercial Dorset 200 head operation. My husband and I bought our current property in 1995. It was just land then. There was no structures, no nothing, not even a driveway. And we worked diligently for the last 25 years to make it what it is today. It's a 100-acre commercial sheep farm where we currently have 100 head of Katahdins, Texels, and Dorper ewes. Sheep farming, out of all the different types of agriculture operations, is probably the least labor intensive for a 12-month period. My busiest time of year is during lambing season. We typically have our lambs born between January 1 and March 30th. We try and service the ethnic holiday markets, which run from March until the end of June. This past year, we had 116 lambs born. So a typical day in that time period is very intensive. It's 24-hour monitoring of the pregnant ewes. We have a closed circuit camera set up that's attached to my phone and a computer, so I can watch the ewes and the lambs to see when someone's going to have a lamb. We feed round bales to our sheep, so pretty much we set in 4 round bales, and that usually lasts about 4 or 5 days, and then we just repeat that. Our ewes are primarily raised on grass. However, 4 weeks before they're supposed to lamb, we start them on grain, and they do get grain for the time that they are lactating for the babies, which is roughly 8 weeks. And then we dry them off, and then we put them back out on pasture. One of the more modern practices we use is called rotational grazing. We have approximately 16 paddocks here that range in size from 2.5 acres to 7 acres. We graze our sheep 1 week in each paddock typically. However, our slowest grazing time is in August. So the most sheep we can have on our pastures is 300 at one time. So if you figure 100 ewes and roughly, 200 lambs, that pretty much puts us at carrying capacity. Also, when you're managing your pastures, you want to make sure you keep weeds under control. So we also have a few goats that we co-graze with our sheep. Goats are what we call browsers. They'll eat anything but grass first, and sheep will eat the grass, and then they'll eat the weeds later. So it's kind of a win-win situation. The goat breed of choice that we have is Nigerian dwarfs, because they're relatively small. They don't eat a lot, and they don't beat up on our sheep. Sometimes sheep and goats don't get along, and so because the goats are smaller than the sheep, They're very happy to cohabitate. Another thing that we use on our farm is we move our sheep from pasture to pasture with canine assistance. This is Cash. He's a 12-year-old border collie. Border collies are extremely trainable. We train our own dogs here. Currently, I have 4 border collies. So Cash is the oldest, and then we have Flynn and Newt. That'll be 6 in the fall. And then I have Cole, who's an up-and-comer who just turned 2. Probably the best time is during lambing season, when you have the new lambs and they get very curious and very friendly, especially when they figure out what food is and they follow you around. And also, I'm a retired ag teacher, so I would bring my students out here during certain times, and they always enjoyed coming out here, learning to give shots, learning how to handle the sheep, and some of them would use those sheep as fair projects to participate in our county fair. So those are probably the best memories that I have. The average farmer, I think, according to the Farm Bureau, is now 67 years of age. I have 2 boys that they have no desire to continue the legacy of the farm at this time, and they may have to change their mind depending on what their future holds. And so I think it's important that some people step up and reach out to these aging farmers and learn from them. There's no better learning than hands-on. Yes, YouTube has been a wonderful advancement in helping us, but there's nothing that beats experience. Absolutely nothing that beats experience. To break it down into basic biology, we are animals, and we need to have food to exist. But bottom line is no food, no people. So I think we're kind of getting away from that in our current society. But at the same token, I think there's a big grassroots push for urban agriculture and for people to understand where their food comes from. When my grandmother, who was the first of our generation, she grew up during the Depression. They basically had to raise their own food because there were no grocery stores. So I think it's really important that people understand where their food comes from, how it's grown, that you don't just dig a hole and throw a seed in it. If you do that, you're going to be not successful at all. You have to understand Mother Nature. You have to understand, what your purpose is. And I think that's extremely important to support local agriculture and also learn how to do stuff yourself. Anybody can put a seed in a pot of potting soil if it's the right kind of soil and grow a tomato plant or a pepper plant. There's nothing better than growing stuff yourself and having it fresh picked. I think kids would appreciate it more because they know where it comes from. And we have a whole generation that doesn't have a clue.
My grandfather bought this farm back in the 40s, soon after the Depression, at a sheriff's sale. So I guess I would be the 3rd generation here on this farm. And then I have a son, and he has 3 boys, so there would be 5 generations here at this point. Yeah, we still use John Deere putt-putt, and even this tractor, my dad bought it new back in the early 1970s, and this is what I kind of learned to drive a tractor on, and now my son learned to drive this tractor, and then now his sons. So yeah, if you take care of equipment, and it lasts a long time, and it can't do a lot of the work, but there's still certain jobs that it can do. Most of our tractors now are bigger, and equipment got bigger, but there's still a place for our small tractors. When I was younger, it was different. It was harder work, and we put in just as many hours. It was more physical work. We did a lot of work with a shovel and a broom and a fork. Now today we work with skid loaders. We used to use pull behind sprayers. Now we're using drones and just different things like that. Much more efficient. We used to fill silo with the neighbor, and we used to thrash with the neighbor. I sound like an old man, but most people don't know what thrashing is. So yeah, I heard a lot of stories about, even before my time, how neighbors would get together and do more than what we do now. We're a lot more independent now than what we used to be, but I'm not saying that's good. It's probably not good. Favorite memory was making hay. We used to fill 3 barns with small square bells. And when the weather was good and we had a lot of help, looking back, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. Those were good memories. As a small dairy, a lot of the small dairies are going out of business. So that's a concern. There's a place for small farms and there's a place for large farms, but I think the small farms are the ones that are going out of business. There's a lot of different reasons for that. We milk about 125, and we have about that many young ones, so a little over 200. We have about 700 acres. We farm about 400. Then we have pasture and woods. So yeah, we grow more crops than what we feed, so we sell corn and beans and hay. I think it's kind of beneficial to be diversified a little bit. Agriculture is very important for people to know just where their food comes from, and it don't grow in the stores. There's a lot behind it and a lot of different ways that you can grow food. And so yeah, I think it's important that the public understands and knows a little bit about it. There's a lot of changes and challenges, but there's still a place for agriculture, and there's a lot of opportunity there if that's really what you want to do. It's hard work and it's not easy. There's easier things you could do, but if it's really what you like, there's an opportunity.
I like working with my animals. Of course, it's a mostly enjoyable experience, especially like when they do the thing that you want them to do. It's very gratifying to have that feedback almost from your animal. I like helping to instruct my peers on some techniques I've learned over the couple of years I've been doing this. It's nice to like have one of those teaching moments and being like, hey, like try this instead of, doing what you're doing now.
Four generations at this facility. Then on my dad's side of the family, they farmed in Somerset. So he came an immigrant from Switzerland, and that was in the 1700s. And when he died, he had 9 farms in his lifetime. Like, it was way different back then. And we'd get up early before school. We had a short list of chores. I'd made cow feed, TMR, fed the cows. We were milking enough cows that we weren't done milking by the time I went to school. It's the same, but at a larger scale. At the maximum in the Baytown farm was 180 cows, and we're at almost 1,500 cows at this facility. So the time it takes to get everything done and the amount of material we have to move, whether that's manure, feed, bring in silage, and the time that it takes to get the cows milked and cleaned and fed is way different than what it used to be from 30 years ago. When I was little, my dad had a 260 Wyatt, had a little canopy on it. That was a pretty neat little tractor to run around. But my grandfather had a Massey, 2 Massey 150s. They were nice little tractors to run around. So I grew up either running skid loader or running tractor from when I was old enough to drive, which was like 8 years old. We didn't do anything for fun other than farm stuff. A couple fair projects, we had pigs at the Huntingdon County Fair. It was all just stuff on the farm. My brother and sister and I were always inventive with stuff to do, whether we were doing a small rodeo in a pen with some jerseys or chasing cats. We had a couple dogs, just making stuff up, having a good time. Still have to go through the normal process of getting your crop work out. So in the springtime, getting the fields ready, corn planted, first cutting hay off. Summertime, same thing, get the wheat harvested, straw baled, and fall's harvest. That's continued on, but everything is a much larger scale. We could get our milking done in 3 hours when we were milked in Baytown. Here, it takes all day because of the amount of cows we have. That's completely changed. That's super good question. Um, as a society, the percentage of farmers has decreased. So we need to educate the next generations to understand where their actual food comes from. This is not coming from the store. These are farm families raising livestock, producing meat, producing milk, poultry, eggs, all on a farm. That's not store based. This is out in the country, everybody doing their fair share. Our biggest industry in Huntingdon County is agriculture. So it's a huge part, but such a small percentage of the people actually participate in agriculture, it goes largely overlooked. People do get exposed to that, whether that's the Huntingdon County Fair, Ag Progress Days, that's just right across the center county line. But it's a major part of the county, but it's largely overlooked because so few people actually participate in agriculture. Back in the day, you might not have been able to afford a full line of equipment. So you would share a corn picker, you might possibly share a corn planter. When it came time to do hay, all the neighbors would get together, they get one farm baled off, go to the next. But before commercial combines, you had thrashing crews. So they'd go start at one end of the county and work their way through. There's like, my grandfather told me there were 7 thrashers in the county at one time. So everybody would go to a little corner and they just work through the ground. So we're a little bit more independent. The size of the farms has grown that we can now afford our own combines and work on our own. But we still rely on our neighbors. If there's a problem, you have a breakdown, we have close neighbors we can get stuff off of, and vice versa. Something breaks down, we'll jump right in and help. The actual percentage of people participating in agriculture at the turn of, what from 99 to 2000, the percentage was a little more than 2%. Now we're less than 2%. We're about 1.7% of actual people participating in production agriculture. And that's a major concern. One, not as many people have exposure to production agriculture. Another part, we're not educating the general public on what actually happens on the farm. What day to day, what they should experience driving up and down the road. Last month was rural road safety. So you get behind a tractor, that tractor may only be going 20 miles an hour, and the car is going 55. So everybody just needs to know, why are they on the road? Why are they going so fast? Well, that's how it was manufactured and what it needs to be to work in the field. Do as much as you can when you're little. Get out, take advantage of summer youth trips, go to the fair, participate in all the clubs you can. 4-H is a big thing. Get involved in 4-H clubs, because that's all free. That's just super good experience right up front, and you can get exposed to a lot of different things at a low cost, and you might steer you in a direction where I would never have thought that I would have enjoyed this. Or I never thought I would have enjoyed working with cows. And it's just, if you don't have the exposure to it, you're less likely to do it as an adult. I like to think that we have really good cows. The cows here, they pay the bills. At the end of the day, all the bills have to be paid by the milk that we sell. And we do sell any extra production animals, they will go to other neighboring farms and for them to milk. And we can generate extra revenue off the sale of those animals. If you're a city person, most farmers will take the time, invite you on. You have to ask, but they will invite you on to their farm to see their operation. They want the general public to know where your food's coming from. So it never hurts to talk to a farmer, ask them to go see their operation. It may not be that day, but they're more than willing to accommodate people on their farm.
We worked, and more work. But we did have fun. We worked with the cows all the time, milk cows. We made hay in the summer. We did have fun. My grandmother had ponies for us, and the neighbor had a swimming pool that we could enjoy. Basically, everything's done with a machine. The cows are loose. They're in free stalls. Before, when I was growing up, the cows were in individual stalls, and it was so much easier to enjoy the cows because we had to bed them up, we had to clean behind them, we had to feed them individually. We have a large dairy operation, and somebody's going to have to take over. But here's 4 of them right here. Step over here, kids. Next generation. Somebody, or all 4 of them. And there's other ones. There's 12 altogether. They scrape manure. They drive tractors, they drive skid loaders. They can drive a tractor and a skid loader better than what I can. They're excellent on 4-wheelers and dirt bikes. Me? I'm not, I rent. Oh yeah. What do you want to tell about driving equipment?
It's fun, and I have fun doing it. And you gotta look good while you do it too.
What's your favorite memory?
Whenever Pat makes apple pie.
Oh yeah, whenever Pat made apple pies, okay.
Walking up to the farm at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Lilly, what's your favorite memory?
They're all good memories. You can be able to be really close with your animals.
We bought those 2 farms for Mom and Dad, and then we bought lots of neighbor farms around. Yeah, we just continue to grow. I always wanted to farm, but I didn't realize we would be at this magnitude. What are my concerns? Hopefully it continues because the world has to eat. With machinery, if the neighbor breaks down, we need to take a chopper, or our chopper breaks down, there'll be a farmer that comes in to help us. And one time, Ben saved the farm for a farmer, out the road. His barn was on fire, and Ben alerted him about the fire. So that's really helping a farmer.
Will's grandfather bought this farm in 1947. He moved over here from Big Valley and bought just the original farm. I think that was 200 acres. Since then, we've added a couple other farms. Our home farm is like 561 acres, and then we rent about 400 acres. I grew up in Martinsburg on a farm. We'd get up in the morning, milk the cows, feed the calves, and then depending on the time of year, in the summer, anything from making hay or combining oats, baling straw. And in the winter, it was mainly just keeping pens cleaned out, animals fed, comfortable, doing shop work, getting tractors fixed up, equipment ready for the spring. In the spring, typical day is go plant corn all day long. It has changed a lot. I think Will had talked about, we used to do a lot of small square bales, and now we do hay in a day, where we mow the hay, chop it, it's in a bag within a 24-hour period. And we bale very little hay. We do round bale some hay, and that's like a 5-foot round bale. We don't do any more square bales anymore. It has kind of come full circle on spray. Will's dad used to use a lot of spray. Our sons, Josh and Marcus, are starting to lean, and we put a lot into practice this year. It's called regenerative farming, where you plant a cover crop in the fall, let it grow, In the spring, you plant through it with beans or corn and roll the cover crop down. So, I mean, cover crop may be 2-3 feet high. You roll it down, you create a mat which holds the weeds down. It takes very little spray. So that is one thing that we have cut back, trying to cut back a lot on spray, which is good for the environment, good for us, good for water, good for our profit margin. Spray is expensive. It also adds biomass to the soil, creates good soil, good worm habitat. As far as milking, the old parlor is behind us. It was one of the first parlors built in the county in 1966. It's a double 6. We now milk up in the new barn in a double 12 parallel parlor. And we have a few regrets with the new barn that we wish that we would have put in robots instead of a parlor. The barn, the way it's set up, it could be retrofitted to a robotic barn. So that may happen in the future. Tractors are, oh my goodness, so much different. Used to be open tractors, no cabs. On our hills, it's not very safe. Our tractors now have cabs, have rollover equipment. Our son just bought 2 tractors last year that have GPS on them. We did some planning and want to continue this next year, where you can apply fertilizer in one spot, not in another spot, according to how your fields are. Technology is crazy different from when Will's dad started farming. Our kids used to love to square bale, and we would unload so many wagon loads of hay and straw in the summer, and they used to see there'd be a couple kids on the wagon and a couple kids in the hay mow, and the kids on the wagon would be like, let's try and bury the kids in the mile. So they would be slinging bales on the elevator, and that was a hard work memory. Some of the fun memories that we had, Sunday evenings, we used to pack sandwiches. Everybody jump on the bed of the truck, and this is probably not safe anymore, but you know, we'd load everybody on the bed of the truck and go up on the top of one of our hills and have a picnic on the bed of the truck and watch the sunset and just talk. And that was kind of a fun memory. The old parlor is still in use. We milk our fresh cows in this. We still are using some of the tractors that Will started with when he was 10, 12 years old. It's a John Deere 4020. I think agriculture has always been important to our family. Will's family has always farmed. I think with agriculture, it's kind of important to know where you came from, to know where you're going, and it keeps you grounded. We have a pretty rural county. We don't have near the farmers we used to, but I still think it's very important. Not any like super mega dairies, but it still brings in a considerable amount of income. Our county fair is one of the largest agricultural fairs in the state. And I think if you talk to anybody on the Junior Livestock Committee, we struggle every year where to put these kids and their projects, which is a huge thing. And it's great because it shows that young people are still interested in agriculture. It's great to see the amount of kids that do exhibit at the fair. However, profit margins are very slim. The price of beef is way up, and that's great. Will it hold? I don't know, because input costs are also very high. It's great to sell a market steer for $3,000-$4,000, but you have a couple $1,000s in feed. So yeah, you're making some money. I'm concerned for young people that input costs are going to continue to rise quicker than what you get for your product, and that it's a great way of life, but it's not the easiest. And it's a 24/7. And sometimes people, you know, they just don't want that anymore. I just saw a desire of some young people that wanted a farming experience but didn't have the opportunity. They lived in town. Some of it's a little selfish on my part. I'm going to admit that, because it's a way for me to show a consumer what we do all the time so they can have a good quality product in milk or beef or whatever. That I hope that the kids can see and learn what it takes to get an end product. It's also, you know, maybe I'm a softie. Just give kids an opportunity to have an animal to take care of. It's a huge way to learn some life skills. Follow your dreams. If you want to farm, it's still there. It's still possible. Learn as much as you can. I admire my boys because this, like I was saying with the regenerative farming, they really researched this and looked into it and talked to people online. And there's a technology thing that our phones, sometimes I hate them, but yet sometimes they're a really good tool. You can talk to people and learn. If you don't have a farming background, there's still opportunities. Be willing to go and talk to other farmers and learn, and be willing to work hard because it takes it.
So the reason that the history of agriculture is important to our youth is because we learn things from what has happened in the past and we decide how to go into the future. Our youth have great ideas about agriculture and technology and new ways to do things. They need to definitely gather some information from the past. It's important that we preserve that so that they have something to guide their decisions, but it's also important that we support the youth in 4-H and in FFA and in our ag communities to continue to move forward with agriculture. Agriculture encompasses everything. It's what we eat, it's what we wear. Every day, everybody's life is impacted by agriculture, and so it's really important that the history be preserved and respected, and yet we still move into the future with new ideas, and our youth is a really important part of that.